I'm Rosemary. I am looking at a fine audience of WYEP members who are going to make noise. And they are making noise for a reason. Yeah, they could just sit here and make noise, but they're making noise for a reason, and that is because bands like to hear noise right before and after they make their noise. So the band that we've asked to come in and make a lot of beautiful noise, none other than the great Old 97s.
I must live in this confusion. I must love to be confused. I must strike out in the darkness, buy some time, both new and used. Time to wander through the arches, time to wonder at the ruins. Time to figure out exactly what the hell I'm doing. All who wander are not lost, just me, just me. Signals and wires both get crossed. Oh, remember back when you got lost with me. I must cling to that which kills me. I must lose my heart's desire. I must wind up warm and wasted with a flat screen for a fire. Will the stories make me happy? Some facsimile thereof. Will they give directions that will lead me back to love? All who wander are not lost, just me, just me. Signals and wires both get crossed. Oh, remember back when you got lost with me. I must walk through walls of whispers. I must sleep neath sheets of rain. I must climb up to the basement and just to slide back down again. All who wander are not lost, just me, just me. Signals and wires both get crossed. Oh, remember back when you got lost. Remember back when you got lost. Remember back when you got lost with me. Oh, 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 oh.
91.3 WYEP Pittsburgh. I'm Rosemary. I'm not part of the band. I just get to enjoy the music, as do you. And it's courtesy of WYEP members. Old 97s are here. I want to point them out individually. Red Miller, Mary Hammond, Ken Bethia, and Philip Peebles, who's back there behind everybody else on the drums. Don't want to overlook Philip back there. So every time you come in here, I just feel like it's this amazing thing that the original lineup is still together. Is next year, or is it this year, the 25th anniversary of the band?
Ken is really good at remembering dates and stuff. I think it's next spring.
Next spring, yeah. Right, next year. This
Well,
is 24.
Yeah, so 24. A year from now, it'll be
1993.
Yeah, in
we
spring of
started.
'93, we joined up with Ken. Murray and I'd been together for a little while, and then in that fall, we got Philip, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so 25 years next year. Crazy.
You'll have to do something
Yeah.
special.
Right?
I was teasing you back there that you could come out here and do the worst old '97 songs. And that could be a special tour, but there are no such things as that, or they don't make that with the records.
Well, that's when we go into the huge argument that breaks up the band.
Yeah.
Well, we won't go there yet because we want to make sure we get a few more good songs on air. This album, Graveyard Whistling, was recorded at a studio that you worked at like 20 years ago. And, I think back 24 years, you're young guys, maybe still single guys, maybe not with kids yet, and you're just on the verge of creating a music career. Well, here you are 24 years later. You're married, kids, and you know what it means to have a music career. So what do you know now that you didn't know then?
Boy, for me, going back to everything. But when
Confidence.
We went back to Tornillo, Texas, and back then it was a studio that was called Village Productions, and it was a really modest little studio in the middle of thousands of acres of pecan tree farms right on the Mexican border. And when we went in to do that record, it was our first major label record, which is to say it was our first big budget record with a real producer and all that stuff. And it was amazing. And, but part of it was that we were realizing right as we were in the midst of it that we were going to be able to live out our dream and make a career out of music. And so to go back 2 decades later and make this record for ATO, a label we really love, our 11th studio album, with all those years under our belt, it's like these guys said, it's all the difference in the world. For me, I was really nervous. I had a lot of insecurity, just racked by fear and self-doubt, just because I was a kid, And now we go back, and I think all of us, and I don't want to speak for them, but I feel like all of us know that we've earned our place in this industry, that we feel really good about what we do, and that we've sort of earned the right to be back in that kick-ass studio.
Well, I would also imagine with the first time that you have a big budget and you're going into a studio, you probably have more ideas than you need going into a record. Whereas as you approach it now, the whole over-the-top experience, all the extra stuff you can put in, I think that gets stripped away on some level.
Yeah. It's a weird thing. Like for this record, though, we had 30 songs that we pared down for the 11-song album that we made. And but we made the record a lot more quickly than even we did that first record because we've gotten really good at what we do, and we picked a producer, Vance Powell, who was really good at sort of shepherding us and keeping things positive and moving. That first record, we would hit a snag, and then we'd go, I'd go off and pout somewhere. I don't do that anymore. I mean, it saves a lot of time.
Yeah, I mean, we get to the bullseyes quicker than ever, and we can still get to them in those days. But now we know where they're at. I mean, even the songs may be stylistically very wide apart.
Here's a good example on my end. When it was after our third record that I felt like I became a good enough guitar player that I could kind of play what I wanted. Up until then, it would take me a long time of practice and whatnot. Now, unlike it's a nice thing about playing music, you can get better as you get older. Like sports, everybody, there's that peak. I'm such a better guitar player now than I was 20 years ago. And a good example is the song Jesus Loves You, which I think we're going to play in a little bit. It would have taken, so all I played on that, it's kind of what you'll hear in a minute. It's a Nashville tuned guitar. It's a weird tuned guitar. There was one in the studio that wasn't mine. I knew we were going to do this song. I didn't want to make it these heavy, thicker guitars that I do a lot of and stuff. I was like, I want something different. As soon as I saw that, I thought, that looks exactly like someone at my church would play along with, because he thought it was kind of cool. It's got this weird chimey sound to it. You'll hear it in a minute. And I thought, and I went straight to Vance and said, this is going to sound great on Jesus Loves You. I sit down and played for probably 15 minutes along with the song, and that's what winds up on it. It would have taken all week to have come with that. And it would never happen, first of all, in 1996. But we'd have been just getting thicker and thicker. And you get better at it. You get smarter.
Well, just what I saw here between, starting with Red and then Mary and then Ken talking, I'm imagining this is sort of the process of how you're putting music together. It maybe starts in one place and then all these other ideas come in. Some of them happenstance.
Yeah.
The reason I got into music was I looked at all the art forms and I was drawn to a number of them, particularly writing, creative writing. But music is really the only one that offers this kind of collaboration where you're always working together towards a common end, and you're depending on your friendship and your respect for each other's ideas to make a thing that's going to be better than any one of you could have made independently.
Yeah. So if you just tuned in, we're talking with Old 97s. The studio that you worked in, right, you described, thousands of acres, pecan trees, 30 songs have to be narrowed down to 11. I would imagine that sometimes the studio that you're in, the environment that's around you, ends up determining maybe what gets on the record, what doesn't, how the record ends up sounding.
Yeah, the sound, I felt like that was a big thing on this record because we were outside El Paso, and beyond those pecan trees was desert, like a ton of flat, dusty desert. And so then the next song we're going to play for you is a song called I Don't Want to Die in This Town. That's the opening track on the record. And it sounds like it could be out of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly after Ken laid his guitar down on it.
Where is the story, the Frank Sinatra story? Wasn't it in like Indiana or something?
I think it was in Rochester. There's an apocryphal story about Frank Sinatra that was the inspiration for the song. My buddy Salim Narala, who's produced a bunch of our records, wrote a lot of the songs on this record with me as he and I toured around doing solo gigs together. And he's great. He's got these great ideas. And he said we should write a song about I Don't Want to Die. The quote. Okay, so Frank Sinatra has a heart attack on stage, and he jumps in the town car where his son is waiting, and he says, get me the hell out of here. I don't want to die in this town. And and I just like it because to me it sort of embodies what we do. I mean, we're just like always play, jump in the vehicle and roll. Let's go. And
back to what you asked, the song is very spaghetti western. It's desert sounding. And the juxtaposition for me anyway, as soon as that started kind of happening in the studio between a Frank Sinatra death, Rochester, New York song, but with spaghetti western guitar, to me that's a home run. That's a win because it's cool. It's not the same old thing,
Yeah, it became Rochester, New Mexico.
Yes.
Yeah.
Creativity is a fascinating thing.
The bridge on this song has roots right here in Pittsburgh. We had been working on it on a northeastern tour, and we'd gotten a good idea of what the verses would be. I think we wrote them in Maryland. And then we got here, and we'd woken up the morning after doing a show just at Club Cafe around the corner from the studio here. And we went to a coffee shop, and Salim had recently become single. And Salim was talking to the girl at the counter at the coffee shop who was all tattooed up and cute. And we were just driving away thinking, well, what does the bridge need to be for the song? And then all of a sudden, I just started thinking of Salim going up to this girl going, why don't you get in the car? Let's go. Like in the way that a traveling circus might, collect unhappy children. That's sort of the rock and roll life. We didn't collect her, but.
Well, I'm glad that the City of Bridges gave you a bridge. We are here with the Old 97s. They're playing Mr. Smalls tonight. They've got a great new record out called Graveyard Whistling, and we're going to ask you to do a couple more tunes. Maybe we'll hear that one you were talking about.
Yes, I don't want to die in this town right now. How did I get here? Where was I headed? Well, I can't recall. Where did everything go wrong? There was a highway, Frank singing my way, or maybe it was Sid. Now I'm paying for what I did. First there were sirens, then there was silence, and a black sky full of stars. I think we might have gone too far. Step on the gas, get out of here. I don't want to die in this town. Put it in the past in the rear view mirror. I don't want to die in this town. I'll entertain you, but I can't save you. Although I'm doing the best I can. I'm just a singer in a rock and roll band. You want a piece of all that I think of, and I'm thinking how pretty you are. I'm looking for a getaway car. Step on the gas, get out of here. I don't want to die in this town. Put it in the past in the rear view mirror. I don't want to die in this town. I got nothing to lose in this town. Gonna walk up to a white-eyed girl working at a counter, wasting her life. Tell her that I'm leaving tonight about midnight. You should come along, you should come along. You should come along, you should come along. Step on the gas, get out of here. I don't want to die in this town. Put it in the past in the rear view mirror. I don't want to die in this town. Step on the gas, get out of here. I don't want to die in this town. Put it in the past in the rear view mirror. I don't want to die in this town. I don't want to die in this town. You should come along, you should come along. 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 Hey!
What do you say, Rhett? You ready to do another song?
As many as you want, Rosemary.
Oh, no. This audience will be here forever.
I gotta say, you guys have great members. This is a great station, and a lot of people support y'all. Thank you very much, y'all, for being here and part of this great station. All right, this song got me in a little bit of trouble with the more evangelical members of the Miller clan down in Texas, but they understand that it's a narrator who's got all these issues. It's not me. It's the guy in the song. All right, here we go. Jesus loves you. Jesus loves you more than I do, just because he doesn't know you, not like I do. Jesus says you'll get salvation if you just keep on waiting and read the same books over and over again. Talk to him all night, but I'm right here. He makes wine from water, but I just bought you a beer. You say Jesus loves you, and I say, what about me? Maybe Jesus loves you. but where the hell is he? He's got the power and the glory. He's got a pretty kick-ass story. And what do I got? I got the hots for you. He's got the whole world in his hands. I've got Lone Star in cans. Now bring one over to you. Sit down next to you, who I'm not discounting. The Sermon on the Mount. And oh, when I was little, you know they dunked me in the fountain. Told me I was born again, but since then I've been torn. And when I think about making love with you, I know it would be more than sin. I'm a real person, a real live person, and you can do a whole lot of worse than ending up with me. Then, even though I'm a heathen, not everybody out here is connected like we've been. I'll take you to the river. Let me take you to the river. I will deliver you. Pray to him all night, but I'm your man. He can walk on water, but I'll kiss you on the sand. You say Jesus loves you, and I say, what about me? Maybe Jesus loves you, but where the hell is he? You say Jesus loves you, oh, and I say, what about me? Oh, maybe Jesus loves you, but where the hell is he? Jesus loves you more than I do, just because he doesn't know you, not like I do.
This is 91.3 WYEP. We're here with the old 97s. Graveyard Whistling is the new album, and they'll be at Mr. Small's tonight. That guy wasn't you. Sometimes I try to think, like, do you ever kind of, like, try to mind your potential inner bad self?
That's a huge part of what I do. Yeah, for sure. Like, if I did all the things that the guy in the song does, I'd be dead a long time ago. I just wrote a piece that got published in this month's Relics magazine, where I kind of deal with that whole idea of narrator versus creator, and it's an interesting thing because you want it to be as honest as possible, which means you really want there to be a lot of autobiography in it. But there's real people in a real life, and family members and all that kind of stuff, and if you really sing about that kind of stuff, it gets pretty tricky. So. I think about it a lot, and there's a fine line that you have to walk. But I try to err on the side of honesty. So that means that if some people get their feelings hurt, so be it. I'd rather make good art than always get along.
There's a choice that everybody always makes in life. You could do this, you could do that. So you can kind of think about, well, what if I had done this? Or what if I did that? I think you can get a little bit of that in there.
Like the tattooed girl in the Pittsburgh coffee shop, She'll never know that she was this close to joining the circus.
Don't let her know. She'll cry. She'll cry. Or do you eavesdrop? I mean, are you ever somewhere and you hear somebody say something and you think, that's so good, or that's just too bad. I gotta remember that.
For sure. I think all songwriters do that a lot. Well, you eavesdrop, and then you read fiction, which is a little bit like eavesdropping in people's lives. I often see people without even hearing anything they say and construct a life for them that I'm sure is way weirder and more interesting than maybe what they're actually living. But yeah, for sure, I love that. I think about that all the time. I mean, one of the other big tricks is you hear a song and you misunderstand a lyric and you think, oh, that would have been so much better if they'd have said that. I'll write that song.
Yeah, Stephen King wrote a book, and he said there's two things that you really have to do to be a good writer. One is write. Yeah. Just write and write and write until you... Even if it's not good. The other thing is to read. And if you're a musician, I am sure that there are things that you read that can play into what you write. But also there's other musicians, when you hear what they're doing, that has got to spark something in you.
Yeah, that book, Stephen King's On Writing a Memoir, is one of the best books. I just reread it, and it's one of my favorite books. It's for anyone that writes not just fiction, but anybody that lives a creative life or aspires to. That book is indispensable. And yeah, he's a genius. And I love that idea that you can't. It's like fuel, you know. It's if you read and listen to music and take in art, that is going to propel you forward to make more art. If you live in a vacuum where there is no other art, and you think, well, I don't want to be influenced by anything, or I don't have time to read. Well, then maybe you just should do a job, you know, and just not try to create art, because to create art, you have to consume art.
Yeah, and when I opened up the pamphlet for the CD, the first thing that hit me when I was looking at it, I thought, wow, that's a lot of words. I mean, you know, for like, oh, this is kind of a cowpunk band, and there's a ton of words. Somebody sent the cowpokes off to writing school. And they're fun to read. There's just so much smart stuff in there. There has to be a lot of editing, though, you know, revising, editing to just get it right.
Oh, so much. So, you know what's funny is when you say a lot of words, because I'll write a ton of songs for the record. Murray writes a handful of songs. We whittle it down. So, you know, if you're starting with, you know, upwards of, you know, almost 36 songs, and each song has, I don't know, 1,000, whatever. That's a lot of words. And so then later you make the record, and then you're trying to figure out what the title of the album's going to be. And you would think that it'd be easier to come up with 2 words than it is 36,000 words. And yet we battle for weeks about what the title's going to be.
It's hard. It's hard naming records.
Oh.
There's so much packed into a song title.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's probably the difference between poetry and prose. In poetry, every single word and line has to be juicy and filled and you know, serve multiple purposes and carry multiple meanings and the weight of a lot of story in the few words. So that's what a title is. And yeah, for this record that we agonized a lot. I feel good about the one we got. We almost I know for me, I kept thinking about The Aftermath, or although that's a Stones record, or The Hangover, which apparently there's a movie franchise. I kept thinking of The Hangover Infinity, like it was the last of the movies. But yeah, it's hard, but I love it. I love all those words. That's my favorite part of it all. No offense, Ken.
You thought there was
there are words
kick-ass
on
licks,
our
right?
albums.
It's that stuff between the guitars.
Well, I cannot wrap up this interview without talking about a song that I'm pretty sure you're going to be doing soon here, and that is "Good with God," which is the first single, and it features Brandi Carlile, and I'm sure that, you know, as you tour, there are different women who can step in. One of the most obvious questions about it, you decided to give God the female gender.
Well, it's funny when you say decided, because it's this thing that happens when you're writing songs where you are the song's first audience. And so I was in a dressing room in Salt Lake City, of all places, which it maybe makes sense that I would be theologically preoccupied. And we were on tour with Nikki Lane, who is in her own right like a goddess, this bigger-than-life kind of person. And I was just backstage, and I was writing the song, and the guy in the song was revealing himself to be kind of a cad, maybe a little self-deceptive. He's kind of, I'm getting away with everything. Everything's going to be fine. And then the chorus rolls around, and I'm surprised as the guy writing the song that, oh my gosh, the God in the chorus is a female God. And then that sort of stopped down the whole song because I didn't want to put words into the mouth of the female God. Then I'm just one more guy writing lines for a woman to sing. So I immediately thought of Brandi Carlile, but just because I'd done a gig with her and her voice was so huge. And it wasn't until later that I discovered that she's actually a very religious woman, and she thinks a lot and lives a religious life, and so it couldn't have been more perfect. So she and I had to do it over email, but we went back and forth writing the lyrics to the song, and she had some demands, much like the God in the song. She had these demands that the guy doesn't get away with it, and she wanted him to really realize before the song was over that his idea that he was going to be fine and get away scot-free with all of his sins was completely wrong. So I appreciated that. Not to mention her vocal take on the song is so beautiful.
Well, you know, I guess it's considered a little risky to take on a God topic outside of, you know, a secular, you know, in a secular form, and yet you have to put a lot of thought into it. You maybe put more thought into it than somebody who's singing a hymn.
Well, yeah, because when you're singing a hymn, the template is laid out for you. You know what it is, because there's a world of hymns that have come before, and they're all basically saying the same thing. If you're dealing with it in a more secular way, like Jesus Loves You, the last song, I agonized over that a lot because I knew it was funny, in the way that Hayes Carl's "She Left Me for Jesus" there's a bunch of songs. There's a long line of songs where some cad sings about Jesus, right? But I wanted it to be more than a collection of punchlines, and so I didn't feel comfortable with that song until I finally came up with that final verse where he kind of goes through that like Spitfire, I'm not discounting the Sermon on the Mount, where he suddenly humanizes himself and he talks about his relationship with religion and his own, like what he agrees with about it and what bothers him about it. And when I think about making love with you, I know it would be more than sin. I mean, I wanted him to be a real human being and not just a setup for a punchline. And so, yeah, you do have to think about it a lot. Because I really have a lot of respect for not just my family members who are involved in the church, but, I grew up going to church a lot. I see a lot of value in it. And, the Sermon on the Mount is one of the greatest things that ever got put out into the world, and I totally believe it and agree with the sentiments expressed therein. So I don't want to just be making fun of it, but I do want to be able to deal with those topics without having to feel like they're completely taboo.
Well, we have to have that song
All right.
before you leave here. So if just in case if you just tuned in, I want you to know this is the old 97s.
Not afraid, I'm good with God. I got my sins, and in fact, I got a lot. Oh, I got a soul that's good and flawed. I'm good with God, I'm good with God. I'm not afraid, got no regrets. I paid my dues, I paid my debts. I've made a mess, but it's my bed. No regrets, no regrets. Goodness knows I've done you wrong. I'm not too gone to see. All's I know's I'm good with God. I wonder how she feels about me. I wonder how she feels about me. Should be scared, I'm not so nice. Well, many a man has paid the price. You're pretty thick, so I'll tell you twice. I'm not so nice, I'm not so nice. I made you up and I'll break you down. I'll do it slow, how does that sound? You're just a joke that's going round. Goodness knows you've done me wrong. I'm not too blind to see. You might think you're good with God. We're gonna have to wait and see. I guess we'll have to wait and see. Oh, hell no, say it ain't so. Is it too late to save my soul? Where do the busted angels go? Yeah! Goodness knows I've done you wrong. I'm not too gone to see. I'm good with God. I wonder how she feels about me. I wonder how she feels about me. I guess we'll have to wait and see. Yeah!
It's Philip Peebles, Ken Bethia, Murray Hammond, Rhett Miller, the Old 97s, Graveyard Whistling, the new album. They're playing Mr. Smalls tonight. Nicole Atkins opening. Thank you so much, guys, for coming in today.
Thanks, Rosemary. Thanks to all you members of
for having
YEP.
Thank you.